Today on Mixed Reef, we're going to be putting together our Makers Pro 4-bank array from LED Supply. LED Supply has done a very nice job in packaging and making sure that everything was bubble wrapped for shipping to my house. I will be taking you through the step-by-step process on how to assemble each array as we go along. LED Supply provides you with nuts and screws and a little plastic washer in order to hold your LEDs in place on the heat sink. I found it most easy to assemble these things by using a pair of pliers, and you get your little plastic washer because it doesn't feed on quite easily enough. You kind of place it on there like so, and then what I do is I kind of just press it down between the two needle nose wires, and it slides pretty much to the base. Not quite on this one, pretty much the base, so you end up having it sort of look like that. So then you can put the nut on it, and it will slide right into the hole on the heat sink. These are the Cree XTE Royal Blue LEDs. They come all attached together in a sheet, but they easily snap apart. Just be gentle with them, no tool required. In the kit, you'll find a pack of thermal grease. I gather that I'm doing a 4-bank LED array, so I've gotten 4 of these thermal grease tubes that I'm going to be now applying to each one of my LEDs as I place them and screw them down onto my heat sink. So you only need a little bit of thermal grease to attach to your back of your LED. So that's basically about all you sort of need. So a helpful tip I would give is make a paper tape pattern on your heat sink. This will help you avoid having your LEDs meet up plus to plus instead of minus to plus. Some of the LEDs on my heatsink I've put on backwards or reversed, so the pluses would meet with a minus, and then the minus would meet with the plus, and so on and so forth. And it makes for a much neater wiring job on your heatsink, and it makes for a better looking array in general. So again, just use a template or some kind of pattern diagram that you have here that's going to help you make sure that all your poles match up properly, plus to minus, all the way through your series. So you end up having a really nice LED array that looks like this one. So I'm going to proceed with the soldering. I have made a pattern for the flow of the wiring for the LEDs for the blue and white. The white being green and the blue being blue paper tape onto the heat sink. So it just sort of gives me the flow and makes sure that all my poles, the negative and positive, are going to line up properly so we don't have any miswiring. I would recommend having a good pair of wire cutters because you are going to cut a lot of wire. A good soldering iron. A cup of coffee also helps. And some solder, the thinnest kind you can find. I guess it's like 28 gauge solder. So anyways, I'm gonna solder this together and we'll pick it up from there. So here is my fully assembled LED array, all soldered, wired, and ready to go on my heat sink. I did use a couple of extra little screws here just to hold down these long extra wires that I have running from one end of the array to the other. So in the dimmer pack, you're going to find some literature, some notes on wiring and things to check for when you're doing your setup. These are handy. I would have them standing by and take a close look at them so you don't make any mistakes. So we're going to look at the dimmer control here for the unit. So on here, you're going to see the 48 volt power supply going in and your channel 1 and channel 2. These are going to be running your LEDs. So anyways, here's the driver, here's the dimmer. You can see, maybe you can see the 3 prongs there. anyways, it's got 3 holes right here, and then they're all 2s. So you obviously know which way this driver will sit in here. So you repeat the process on the second one. It goes in exactly the same way. This is your fan power right here. This little white 3-prong. So that's to power your fan. This is the side that you're going to plug in your controller to if you have a controller you're using that kind of setup. So I decided that before I assemble the whole unit, I wanted to make sure that these drivers and the dimmer control powered up along with my controller that gives me my sunrise sunset lighting effects. So one really important thing that you need to make sure that you do correctly and that you can burn out these dimmers is to make sure that you get the plus and the minus correct on your power supply, so that the wires end up going from the negative and the positive end up going to the negative and the positive on your unit, on your dimmer unit. So anyways, here goes the test to power this thing up. So there you go. You can see that the controller has come on, and there's a little LED, a little red LED right here that has come on. So it looks like this unit is working correctly, and I will proceed to the assembly onto the heatsink. So I've noticed that before I start my assembly on the heatsink with the dimmer, that the 3-prong will get pretty inaccessible once I mount it on here. So what we're going to do is we're going to hook up the fan to that 3-prong so we can slip that on there and tighten it down, and we don't have to worry about trying to hook up the fan afterwards. When you assemble your LED array, make sure that you point the fan downwards. So it has a label up here. Put the label on the inside so the fan blows down onto the heatsink, keeping those LEDs cool. That would be my recommendation. This is your power supply. Basically, you have your positive, your negative, and your ground right here. This is your negative and your positive that's going to run to your LEDs. Over here you have an adjuster screw for your voltage. And over here is a very important little part. It has a 220 and a 110 switch over. And so you want to make sure that you switch it over to the 110 before you plug this thing in to the wall, because it can really damage the drivers. So that's a very important thing to remember right there, is that little switch. There's a little switch in there. You just flip it over with a screwdriver or some scissors or whatever you got handy. In the kit comes a power cord, 2-prong power cord. The ends are already clipped and ready to go, and we're going to attach that. To notice that the controller's clock was not set, and it thought it was nighttime, so I've reset the clock. So I'm going to turn these back on again, and these should be a much brighter intensity now, which they certainly are. Anyways, I just thought that was interesting. So when you go to build this thing and you hook it up with the controller, make sure that the clock's set for daytime. A few last things I'd like to cover here before we wrap this thing up is that LED Supply does have an optional hanging kit that you can get for your LED array. This is your vertical cable, this is your horizontal cable. It attaches to the nuts and bolt and a little washer that sits on your heat sink. It comes in this plastic little baggie right here, and also in the kit it has these little rubber finishing pieces right here that also go onto your heat sink. So basically what you want to do is you want to take your vertical cable right here, and it threads through this little guy right there and threads through that little guy. It has a tension, so it locks when you feed it through, and if you want to unlock it, you push on this little part right there. That little part right there will loosen it off. So if you want to move the LED array up or down to closer or further away from your fish tank, it gives you that option. It also has a little nut inside there, that little black dot. That little nut you'll need an Allen key for to tighten that. That tightens, I guess, your horizontal cross section here, so it doesn't slide around on you back and forth. And as far as hooking it up into the ceiling, it's really easy. The vertical cable comes to this little nut right here. It comes to a ball and it comes to a little nut. This piece and this piece, and you drill it into your ceiling or wherever you're going to be mounting these things off of. And then you thread this thing in here, and this is your vertical cable that's going to hook up to your horizontal that's going to support your LED array. One last thing I'd like to point out is it does come with plastic finishing sides for your heatsink right here. These plastic sides I'm not going to be using, but they easily mount. Their screws come with it. So my overall review for the LED supply LED arrays that I've built is good. I would definitely recommend getting this. It's great bang for your buck. It comes with an optional controller which will give you sunrise, sunset. It's also great because if the fan breaks down, you can easily replace the fan. If the drivers break down or the dimmer control or the LEDs burn out, like if you're looking at building a fish tank over the long term, this is probably a good array for you. I hope that you've enjoyed my first DIY video on how to build these arrays. I'm going to include some information about LED Supply and their great technical support and their webpage and where you can find this stuff should you want to get one. Again, I think this is a great option. I would not hesitate to get this sort of system for a reef tank.
Needle nose, needle nose, needle nose, needle nose.